My sister demanded her boyfriend's brother get my room while I was away at school. My parents agreed. I came home to a stranger in my bed, left without a word, stopped paying. They panicked when they found out who was actually funding the mortgage. All right, Reddit. This one's a mess. My sister gave away my room to her boyfriend's random brother while I was at college. My parents backed her up. I came home to some dude sleeping in my bed like it was his. So I left. Didn't argue, didn't yell, just stopped paying for something they didn't know I was paying for. Here's how their world fell apart. I'm 28, work in commercial real estate development. Started as an analyst right out of college, worked my way up to project manager over 6 years. Good money, steady career, nothing flashy, but comfortable. I'm talking low six figures in a market where that actually means something. The job itself is intense but rewarding. I manage multi-million-dollar projects, office buildings, retail centers, mixed-use developments. My day usually starts at 6 a.m. reviewing blueprints and contractor bids. Then it's meetings with architects, engineers, city planners. I coordinate teams of 15 to 20 people per project, making sure everything stays on schedule and under budget. The pressure is constant, but I thrive on it. My first project as lead manager was a retail plaza worth $8 million. I was terrified of screwing up, double-checking every invoice, every timeline, every contractor agreement. Finished 2 weeks early and $200,000 under budget. That success earned me bigger projects and the trust of senior partners. Now I'm managing 3 simultaneous developments worth a combined $45 million. The responsibility is massive, but so is the satisfaction when a project comes together perfectly. My apartment reflects my lifestyle: minimal, functional, organized. 1 bedroom in a decent complex near downtown. IKEA furniture that I actually assembled correctly. Kitchen stocked with meal prep containers. Closet full of work clothes arranged by color. Nothing fancy, but everything has its place. I'd been living there for 3 years, saving aggressively, planning to buy something soon. Work friends would invite me out for expensive dinners or weekend trips, and I'd usually decline. Not because I couldn't afford it technically, but because I was funneling money elsewhere. They probably thought I was cheap or antisocial. Reality was more complicated. My family situation requires context. I'm the oldest of 3 kids. My sister Natalie is 25, works part-time at some boutique, while living at home rent-free. My brother Danny is 22, also living at home, currently finding himself between jobs. Both of them never really launched, just sort of existed in the family house, treating it like a permanent hotel. Natalie's job at the boutique was barely 20 hours weekly. She'd work Tuesday through Saturday, noon to 4 or 5. The owner was a family friend who basically created the position as a favor. Natalie would post Instagram stories of herself working, which mostly looked like trying on clothes and taking selfies in the store mirror. Her paychecks were maybe $600 every 2 weeks, all of which disappeared on makeup, clothes, and brunch with friends. Danny's employment history read like a comedy routine. He'd had 7 jobs in 3 years. Started at a grocery store, quit after 2 months because standing was tiring. Tried working at a gym, lasted 6 weeks before the early morning shifts became too much. Delivery driver for 3 months until he got into a fender bender and decided driving was too stressful. Each job ended with some excuse why it wasn't right for him, followed by months of job searching that mostly involved playing video games. Our parents, dad's 58, mom's 56, have this weird dynamic where they enable my siblings while expecting me to just deal with everything because I have it together. A classic oldest child syndrome, except taken to an extreme level that would make a case study for family dysfunction. The pattern started early. When I was 12 and Natalie was 9, we both wanted bikes for Christmas. I got a used mountain bike from a garage sale that Dad repainted. Natalie got a brand new pink beach cruiser with a basket and streamers. When I pointed out the difference, Mom said I was more practical and would appreciate the character-building experience of having a fixer-upper. In high school, I worked at a local hardware store, stocking shelves and helping customers. Saved every paycheck for college. Natalie got an allowance of $100 monthly just for existing. When I asked why I didn't get an allowance, Dad said work was building my work ethic, and I should be grateful for the opportunity. When Natalie wrecked Mom's car during her senior year, texting while driving, rear-ended someone at a red light, my parents paid the deductible and her insurance increase. When I asked to borrow the car for prom, they said no because insurance for teen male drivers is too expensive. The favoritism wasn't even subtle. It was baked into every family decision, every financial choice, every conversation about the future. Growing up, I was the responsible one. Did my homework without being asked, got decent grades, Worked part-time jobs in high school, saved for college. My siblings? Different story. Natalie was the princess who could do no wrong. Danny was the baby who needed extra help with everything. Report cards were another painful ritual. I'd bring home A's and B's, get a good job, we expect that from you. Natalie would bring home C's and D's, get a family dinner at her favorite restaurant for trying her best. Danny failed algebra twice, got a tutor paid for by my parents, then barely passed with a D, and they celebrated like he'd won a Nobel Prize. My college applications were my responsibility. I researched schools, requested transcripts, wrote essays, filled out financial aid forms. My parents helped Natalie with every step of her cosmetology school application, even though it was a 6-month program at a strip mall. They drove her to the campus tour, helped her pick out supplies, threw her a going to beauty school party. I went to state school on a partial scholarship, covered the rest with loans and work, lived in the dorms freshman year, then got an apartment off campus with roommates, came home for holidays and occasional weekends, but basically lived independently from age 18 onward. After graduation, I moved 3 hours away for work, got a small apartment, furnished it with hand-me-downs and stuff from garage sales. Spent my 20s grinding at work, paying down student loans, building savings. Nothing glamorous, just steady progress. But here's the thing nobody in my family knew. I'd been helping with the mortgage on their house for the past 4 years. Let me explain how that happened. 4 years ago, Dad got laid off from his manufacturing job. Company downsized, cut half the workforce. He was 54, which meant finding new work at comparable pay was basically impossible. He eventually found another job, but at 60% of his previous income. The house, a decent 4-bedroom in the suburbs they'd bought 20 years ago, suddenly became unsustainable. They'd refinanced a few years earlier to pay for Natalie's failed attempt at cosmetology school and Danny's semester at community college before he dropped out. The mortgage was about $2,400 monthly, which their reduced income couldn't cover alongside everything else. Mom worked part-time as a receptionist at a dental office, maybe $1,800 monthly. Between Dad's reduced income and her earnings, they were bringing in around $4,500 monthly. Mortgage plus utilities, insurance, property tax, food for 4 people, car payments. The math didn't work. They were 3 months behind on the mortgage when Dad finally called me, voice shaking with shame. Son, I hate asking, but we're in trouble. The bank sent a foreclosure notice. I remember that call vividly. It was a Tuesday evening in March. I was making dinner, chicken and rice, the same meal I'd eaten 4 times that week to save money. My phone rang, Dad's name on the screen, and something in my gut knew it was bad news before I answered. His voice cracked when he explained the situation. 3 months behind, late fees piling up, the foreclosure notice giving them 90 days to catch up or face eviction. He'd been too ashamed to tell anyone, including Mom, until the notice arrived. She'd found it in the mail, and they'd had a huge fight about his pride preventing him from asking for help sooner. I've failed you kids, he said, and I could tell he was crying. Worked my whole life to provide a stable home and now I'm losing it. Your mother won't even look at me. I was 24, 2 years into my career, barely making $55,000 at the time. But I'd been living cheap, saving aggressively, and had about $15,000 in the bank. I also had this weird sense of obligation. These were my parents, the house I grew up in, my younger siblings who'd be homeless. My apartment at the time was basic, $750 monthly rent for a studio in an older building. The shower had weak water pressure. The kitchen was barely functional. The AC unit rattled like it was possessed. But it was mine, paid for by my work, and I'd been proud of my independence. That pride was about to become a luxury I couldn't afford. So I made a decision that seemed right at the time. I'd help with the mortgage. Not pay all of it, but enough to keep them afloat while Dad got back on his feet. I spent 3 days researching options. Called the mortgage company during my lunch breaks, pretending to be Dad to get information about their policies. Learned about loan modifications, forbearance programs, refinancing options. Made spreadsheets calculating different scenarios, trying to find a solution that wouldn't completely wreck my own finances while saving theirs. I called the mortgage company, explained the situation, asked about options. They suggested a loan modification, which would reduce payments temporarily but extend the term. I negotiated on my parents' behalf, got the payment lowered to $1,900 monthly for 2 years, then back to $2,200 after that. The negotiation took hours across multiple calls. The mortgage rep was sympathetic but firm about requirements. They needed updated income verification, hardship documentation, proof that Dad was employed even at reduced income. I walked Dad through gathering every document, filling out every form. We did three-way calls where I did most of the talking while he provided the necessary verbal confirmations. The modification approval came with conditions. They had to be current on payments during the application process, which meant coming up with 3 months of back payments plus the current month. That was $9,600. I covered $6,000 of it from my savings. They scraped together the rest by selling Mom's jewelry and Dad's fishing boat. Still too much for their budget. So I set up an automatic transfer, $1,000 monthly from my account to theirs, designated for mortgage. I could barely afford it, but I made it work by eating ramen, skipping social events, driving a car that was older than my career. My lifestyle changed overnight. Stopped eating out completely. Went from occasional restaurant meals to meal prepping rice and chicken for every dinner. Canceled my gym membership, started running outside instead. Stopped buying clothes unless something literally fell apart. My coworkers would invite me to happy hour, and I'd make excuses about being tired or having other plans. One guy, Jeremy, pulled me aside after I declined yet another invitation. "Man, you okay? You're not sick or something, are you? You've lost weight and you never hang out anymore." I told him I was just focused on saving money. Didn't mention I was keeping my family's house from foreclosure while they funded my siblings' recreational lifestyles. The arrangement was supposed to be temporary. Dad would get back on his feet, maybe find better work, and eventually take over the full payment. I'd help for maybe a year, then gradually reduce my contribution. 4 years later, I was still sending $1,000 monthly. Dad never found better work. Mom never increased her hours, and neither of my siblings contributed a single dollar to household expenses, despite being adults living there, rent-free. Here's what made it worse. They had no idea I was helping. When I set up the arrangement, I told Dad to keep it between us. Didn't want Mom stressing, didn't want my siblings feeling weird about it. The money went into their account automatically, they paid the mortgage, nobody asked questions. Over 4 years, I'd sent them $48,000. That's not including the few times I covered emergency repairs or threw extra money their way for various crises. Probably closer to $55,000 total. Meanwhile, I'd delayed buying my own place, drove the same car for 6 years, took budget vacations, and basically lived below my means to keep their house afloat. My friends were buying condos and new cars while I was subsidizing my family's lifestyle. Did they appreciate it? Hard to say since they didn't know. But they certainly never questioned why the mortgage was suddenly manageable after Dad's income dropped. Just accepted that things worked out somehow. The real problem was Natalie and Danny. Both capable adults, both freeloading, both acting like the family house was their permanent residence with no responsibilities. Natalie worked maybe 20 hours weekly at the boutique, spent her paychecks on clothes and nights out. Danny bounced between jobs, usually working a month or two before quitting, because he didn't vibe with the management. Neither paid rent. Neither contributed to groceries or utilities. They just existed, taking up space, while I quietly funded their lifestyle from 3 hours away. I visited maybe once a month, usually just overnight. My old bedroom was still mine in theory. Mom kept some of my stuff there, old trophies and books and whatever. But I hadn't actually stayed there regularly in years, until last month, when everything imploded. I had a work conference in my hometown, 3-day event at the convention center. Made sense to stay at my parents' place instead of getting a hotel. I texted Mom on Tuesday. "Conference this weekend. Mind if I crash at the house Thursday through Sunday?" Her response, "Of course, sweetie. Your room is always ready." The conference was about emerging trends in commercial development, sustainable building practices, new zoning regulations, that kind of thing. My company was sending 3 of us, and we'd planned to network with other developers from across the region. I'd actually been looking forward to it. A chance to visit home while accomplishing something professionally. I'd even planned to take my parents out for dinner Friday night. My treat. Had already made reservations at their favorite Italian place. Figured it would be a nice gesture since I hadn't been home in 6 weeks. Maybe I'd been feeling guilty about not visiting more often, about being so focused on work and my own life. Cool. I packed a bag, drove down Thursday afternoon, arrived around 6 p.m., pulled into the driveway, grabbed my stuff, walked in through the front door like I'd done hundreds of times. The driveway looked the same as always. Mom's sedan on the left, Dad's truck on the right, the basketball hoop Danny never used hanging crooked above the garage door. The front lawn needed mowing. The mailbox was crooked. The house looked tired but familiar. The same place I'd grown up in. Came home to every school break. Celebrated every holiday. The house smelled like someone was cooking dinner. I heard voices from the kitchen. Mom, Natalie, some male voice I didn't recognize. Normal enough, probably Natalie's boyfriend. That smell was Mom's pot roast. She made it every few weeks. The same recipe she'd been using since I was a kid. Beef, carrots, potatoes, onions, all slow cooked with some kind of seasoning blend she refused to share the details on. It smelled like home, like comfort, like everything was normal. I dropped my bag by the stairs, headed up to my room to change before saying hello. Opened my bedroom door and stopped cold. Some dude was asleep in my bed, not just napping on top of the covers, fully asleep under my blankets, head on my pillow, snoring softly. He looked about 19 or 20, skinny guy with messy hair, wearing a white tank top. For a second, I thought I'd opened the wrong door. Maybe I'd gotten confused. Maybe this was Danny's room. But no. I could see my old desk against the wall, my bookshelf shoved awkwardly in the closet, the posters I'd left up from high school still visible between his random decorations. My room had been completely rearranged. My bookshelf was shoved in the closet, my desk pushed against the wall at a weird angle. There were clothes I didn't recognize hanging in the open closet, guys' sneakers by the bed, an energy drink on my nightstand. The bed itself looked different too. My blue comforter was replaced with some black and gray pattern I'd never seen. There were guys' toiletries on my dresser, cologne, hair product, deodorant, a phone charger plugged into my wall outlet, fast food wrappers in my trash can. This person wasn't just sleeping in my room. He was living here. I stood there processing this for maybe 10 seconds. Then I closed the door quietly and went downstairs. My hands were shaking slightly as I walked down the stairs. Not from anger, not yet anyway. More from confusion, trying to understand what I'd just seen, trying to give my family the benefit of the doubt that there was some reasonable explanation. Everyone was in the kitchen. Mom at the stove, Natalie setting the table, Danny on his phone at the counter, and some guy who must be Natalie's boyfriend, leaning against the fridge. The kitchen scene was so domestic, so normal. Mom was humming while stirring the pot roast. Natalie was arranging plates and silverware. Danny was doing his usual phone zombie routine. This new guy was drinking from a glass like he belonged there. Nobody looked stressed or guilty or like anything was wrong. "Hey," I said. My voice came out flat. "There's someone sleeping in my room." Mom turned around, spatula in hand, completely unfazed. "Oh, honey, right. That's Kevin. He needed a place to stay for a few weeks." "Kevin, Natalie's boyfriend's brother," she explained, like this was the most normal thing in the world. "He's between apartments. Natalie offered him your room since you never use it anyway." The casual tone in her voice was what got me. Not apologetic, not concerned about my reaction, just completely matter of fact. Like she was telling me they'd rearranged the living room furniture, not given away my personal space to a total stranger. I looked at Natalie, who was now avoiding eye contact. The boyfriend, presumably Kevin's brother, was studying his phone very intently. "You gave away my room to a complete stranger. You don't even live here anymore," Natalie said, defensive edge in her voice. "You visit like once a month. Kevin needed somewhere to stay, and your room was just sitting empty. Once a month," I repeated. "So because I don't live here full time, my room isn't actually mine?" "Well, yeah," she said, like this was obvious. "You have your own place 3 hours away. You're an adult with your own life. Kevin needed help and we had space. My room, with my stuff in it." Natalie waved her hand dismissively. "It's not like you use that stuff. When's the last time you read those books or looked at those old trophies? It's just taking up space." "We moved your stuff to the garage," Mom said, still acting like this was perfectly reasonable. "Just temporarily until Kevin finds a place." The garage. I felt something cold settling in my chest. "You put my belongings in the garage." "They're fine," Mom said. "We put everything in boxes nice and neat. Nothing's damaged." "That's not the point." "Then what is the point?" Natalie's voice was rising now. "That you're so selfish you can't let someone in need use an empty room?" The casual dismissiveness was stunning. Not, "We should have asked you," or "Sorry for the confusion." Just matter-of-fact displacement of my space for some random person. Danny finally looked up from his phone. "Dude, why are you being weird about this?" "It's just a room." "Just a room," I said quietly. "Yeah, Kevin's going through some stuff. His roommate kicked him out and he needed somewhere to crash. Natalie was being a good person. You should be supportive." "When did this happen?" "Last week," Natalie said. "Brian's brother got evicted and needed help. We're just being good people." "Evicted," I said. "So he got kicked out for not paying rent, and your solution was to put him in my room?" Brian, the boyfriend, finally spoke up. "Yeah, man, I really appreciate your family helping Kevin out. He's going through a rough patch." Going through a rough patch was code for completely irresponsible. I'd heard that phrase enough times to know. Danny was always going through a rough patch when he quit jobs. Natalie was going through a rough patch when she maxed out her credit cards. How long has he been here? I asked. Since Monday, Mom said. He's very quiet. You'd barely know he was here. Except he's sleeping in my bed right now. Well, it's 6 o'clock, Mom said, like I was being unreasonable. He works nights, so he sleeps during the day. He's very responsible about his schedule. The irony of calling someone who got evicted responsible while he slept in a room he had no right to be in was apparently lost on her. I looked at Mom. And you approved this? Well, Natalie asked, and it seemed like a kind thing to do. You have your own place 3 hours away. Kevin needed help. It made sense. There it was. My room, in the house I was actively paying for, given to a stranger because I had the audacity to live independently as an adult. Did anyone think to ask me? Mom looked genuinely confused by the question. Ask you what? If you could give away my room to a stranger. But you don't need it, she said slowly, like explaining something to a child. You only visit occasionally? It seemed wasteful to leave it empty when someone needed it. It's my room. It's our house, Natalie snapped. You moved out. You don't get to dictate what happens here. Something clicked off in my brain. That same switch that flips when you realize you're done with a situation. No anger, no yelling, just cold clarity. Where's Dad? Working late, Mom said. Should be home around 8. Are you staying for dinner? I looked around the kitchen. At my enabling parents, my entitled sister, my freeloading brother, this stranger who was dating into the family. All of them comfortable, well-fed, living in a house they thought was secure. No, I said. I'm not staying for dinner. I went back upstairs, opened my bedroom door. Kevin was still asleep. I took a photo of him in my bed with my phone, just evidence of this insanity. Then I went to the garage, found the boxes with my stuff, loaded the important things into my car. Took 3 trips to get everything. Mom came out during the second trip. Honey, what are you doing? Taking my things. But you'll be back this weekend, right? For the conference? No. Where will you stay? Hotel. She looked confused, like she couldn't understand why I'd be upset. This is silly. Kevin will be gone in a few weeks. You can have your room back then. I loaded the last box into my trunk, closed it, turned to face her. Tell Dad I need to talk to him. Tomorrow. Alone. Then I drove to a hotel, checked in, and sat on the bed thinking about what just happened. My family had given my childhood bedroom to a stranger without asking, dismissed my belongings to the garage like they were junk, and couldn't comprehend why I'd be bothered. They'd taken my space in a house I was literally paying to keep. The disrespect was so casual it was almost impressive. I pulled out my laptop and logged into my bank account. Found the automatic transfer set up 4 years ago, $1,000 monthly to my parents' checking account. Hovered the cursor over Cancel Recurring Transfer for a long minute. Then I clicked it. A confirmation screen popped up. Are you sure you want to cancel this transfer? I clicked yes. The next screen showed the cancellation was effective immediately. No more money would transfer on the 1st of next month, or ever again, unless I reactivated it. I closed the laptop and went to bed. Best sleep I'd had in months. Dad called me at 7 a.m. Friday morning. I let it go to voicemail. He called again at 7:15, again at 7:30. I finally answered the 4th call. We need to talk, I said before he could speak. Coffee shop on Main Street, 1 hour. I got there first, ordered coffee, sat in the back corner. Dad arrived 10 minutes later looking stressed and confused. He slid into the chair across from me. The coffee shop was one of those local places that had been around for 30 years. Same booths, same menu, same owner who knew half the town by name. I'd spent countless hours here during high school, studying for exams or meeting friends. It felt surreal to be here for this conversation. Dad looked like he'd aged 5 years overnight. His hair seemed grayer, the lines around his eyes deeper. He was wearing his work jacket, which meant he'd probably taken time off to meet me. That was unusual. Dad never missed work unless it was serious. Your mother said you were upset about the room situation. The room situation, I repeated. That's what we're calling it? Son, I know Natalie should have asked first, but how much is the mortgage payment, Dad? He blinked, thrown by the subject change. What? The mortgage, monthly payment. How much? $1,900 right now. Goes up to $2,200 next year when the modification ends. Why? He said it so casually, like it was just a number. Like those $1,900 just appeared magically every month. Some kind of financial miracle that required no explanation or gratitude. And how much are you paying? His face got that confused look. All of it. $1,900. Wrong. You're paying $900. I'm paying $1,000. Silence. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone, showed him my banking app. The transaction history going back 4 years. $1,000 monthly to their account, labeled mortgage assistance. 4 years, Dad. 48 months. $48,000. I've been covering over half your mortgage since you got laid off. He stared at the screen, scrolling through the transactions with a shaking hand. The color drained from his face. His hand actually trembled as he held my phone. I watched him scroll up, seeing month after month of transfers. March 2020, April 2020, May 2020, on and on. The same $1,000, the same memo line, never missing a month. I didn't know, because I told you not to tell anyone, remember? You called me panicking about foreclosure. I negotiated the loan modification and agreed to help temporarily, 4 years ago. But the money just appeared every month. I thought, the modification lowered the payment from $2,400 to $1,900. You couldn't afford even $1,900 on your income, so I paid the difference. Every single month for 4 years. Dad looked like he'd been hit with a brick. Jesus Christ, all this time? All this time. While Natalie and Danny lived rent-free, while you and Mom covered their expenses, while nobody asked where the money was coming from. I paid to keep that house. Your siblings, they don't know? Nobody knows. Just you. Or just you did know, then apparently forgot. I didn't forget, he said weakly. The money came in automatically. After a while, I guess I stopped thinking about where it came from. I thought maybe the bank had made some adjustment, or you didn't want to think about it, I said. Because thinking about it would mean acknowledging your grown kids were freeloading, while I subsidized their lifestyle from 3 hours away. He put his head in his hands. Why didn't you tell us? I did tell you. Then you forgot, or convinced yourself it was temporary and never thought about it again. Either way, my money kept flowing, your house stayed secure, and everyone got comfortable. What do you want me to say? Nothing. I'm just giving you information. I took a sip of coffee. The automatic transfer is canceled, effective immediately. His head snapped up. What? I'm done paying your mortgage. You have until the 1st of next month to figure out how to cover that $1,000. And every month after that. You can't just stop. We'll lose the house. His voice rose loud enough that other customers turned to look. The owner, Mr. Pearson, glanced over with concern. I kept my voice calm and low, forcing Dad to match my tone if he wanted to continue the conversation. You'll lose the house if you can't make the payment. That's between you and the bank. This is because of the room thing? You're going to let us lose our home over a bedroom? I laughed. Actually laughed. No, Dad. This is because you gave away my room in a house I'm paying for to a complete stranger without asking. Because my siblings are adults who contribute nothing while living there rent-free. Because I've subsidized your family's lifestyle for 4 years and got zero appreciation or even acknowledgement. We didn't know. Whose fault is that? I sent the money. You spent it. Never questioned it. Never thanked me. Never once asked if I could afford it. Just accepted it as your due. We thought, I don't know what we thought, that things just worked out somehow. Things worked out because I made them work out. While eating ramen and driving a car with 180,000 miles, and skipping vacations and watching my friends buy houses while I kept yours from foreclosure. Dad was crying now, actual tears running down his face. Part of me felt guilty, watching my father break down in a public coffee shop, but a bigger part of me was just done caring about his feelings when he clearly hadn't cared about mine. He looked desperate now. Please, we can't afford the full payment. We'll be homeless. Then Natalie and Danny need to start paying rent, or get their own places. You and Mom need to figure out your budget. Maybe sell the house and downsize. These are your problems to solve. You'd really do this to your own family? My own family just did this to me. I think we're even. I stood up, left cash on the table for my coffee, and walked out. Dad called my name, but I didn't turn around. Drove back to my city, went to my conference, did my job. Ignored approximately 40 calls from my family over the next 3 days. Let them stew in the reality of their situation. Monday morning, I got a voicemail from Mom. Her voice was shaking, barely coherent. Honey, please call us back. Your father told me what you did. This is insane. We're family. We can't lose our home. Please, we need to talk about this. Tuesday. Missed calls from Natalie. Are you seriously going to ruin our lives over a stupid room? Dad told me everything. This is so messed up. Call me back. Wednesday. Danny finally got involved. Dude, what the heck? Mom's crying every day. Dad looks like he's having a breakdown. All because you're throwing a tantrum? Grow up and fix this. Thursday. Brian, the boyfriend, somehow got my number. Hey man, this is Brian. Look, I know the Kevin situation was bad timing, but don't you think you're overreacting? They're your parents. Just help them out. I blocked his number immediately. Friday. Dad again, this time angry. You want us on the street? Your mother, your siblings, everyone homeless because you got your feelings hurt? What kind of son does that? I almost responded to that one. Almost called him back and laid out exactly how his lack of parenting created two adult children who couldn't function independently, how his financial irresponsibility necessitated my help in the first place, how his complete lack of boundaries allowed my sister to give away my space to a stranger. But I didn't. Radio silence is more effective than any argument. The weekend brought a new development. Mom and Natalie showed up at my apartment building. The front desk called up. Sir, there are two women here claiming to be family. They're quite insistent about seeing you. Tell them I'm not home and not receiving visitors. Heard my mom's voice in the background, high-pitched and desperate. Please, we drove 3 hours. We just need 5 minutes. I hung up, texted the front desk to not let them up under any circumstances. They stayed in the lobby for 2 hours before finally leaving. The messages continued, each one a variation of the same theme: family loyalty, guilt tripping, accusations of cruelty, begging for mercy. Not one person acknowledged that what they'd done, giving away my room to a stranger in a house I was paying for, was the actual betrayal here. 2 weeks after I canceled the payment, Dad called from an unknown number. I answered out of curiosity. The mortgage is due in 4 days. We don't have the money. We're going to miss the payment. Sounds like a problem. You're really going to let this happen? I'm not letting anything happen. I'm just not preventing it anymore. There's a difference. We've got nowhere to go. The bank will foreclose. Not after one missed payment. You've got time to figure something out. Figure what out? We can't afford this place? Then sell it. Downsize. Get an apartment. Do what millions of other people do when they can't afford their housing. This is our home. It's a house, Dad. Houses can be sold. Family homes get sold every day. Life goes on. Your mother is devastated. So am I. Difference is I'm devastated by people who were supposed to respect me. She's devastated by financial consequences. He hung up. I went back to work. 3 weeks in, I got a certified letter at my office. Legal letterhead, law firm I didn't recognize. Opened it to find a letter from my parents' attorney threatening legal action for breach of verbal contract and elder financial abuse. I forwarded it to my own lawyer, a buddy from college who worked in contracts. He called me an hour later, laughing. This is the dumbest letter I've ever seen. There's no verbal contract. You are making voluntary gifts to help family. You can stop any time. And elder financial abuse? That's when someone exploits elderly people financially. You were literally giving them money. This won't go anywhere. Should I respond? I'll send them a polite letter explaining basic contract law and voluntary gifts. They'll drop it once they realize they have no case and will just waste money on legal fees. True to his word, the legal threats evaporated after his response. Apparently, my parents couldn't afford to pursue frivolous litigation while also trying to cover their mortgage. Month 2 brought capitulation. Sort of. Dad called, sounding defeated. We talked to the bank. They're willing to let us sell the house and pay off the mortgage with no penalty. We found a realtor. It's going on the market next week. Okay. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say? I want you to say you'll help us. We're going to be homeless. You're not going to be homeless. You're going to sell a house you can't afford and find housing within your budget. That's called being an adult. We have nowhere to go. There are apartments all over town. Smaller places. Cheaper rent. You'll figure it out. What about Natalie and Danny? What about them? Where will they live? They're adults. They'll find their own places. Or they can move with you if you get a big enough apartment. Either way, not my problem. The silence stretched. Finally, you've changed. You're not the son I raised. The son you raised spent 4 years quietly funding your lifestyle while getting zero appreciation. Maybe that son finally woke up. He hung up again. The house sold in 6 weeks. They got about $180,000 after paying off the mortgage and fees. Split between 4 people, that's $45,000 each. Enough for first and last month's rent, security deposit, and some cushion. Dad and Mom found a 2-bedroom apartment in a cheaper part of town. Rent was $1,200 monthly, which their combined income could actually cover. Downsizing was painful for them, apparently. Had to sell or donate a lot of furniture, consolidate possessions, accept a smaller living space. Natalie moved in with Brian. Within 3 months, they broke up, and she got her own studio apartment, working full-time at a restaurant to cover rent. Turns out when you can't freeload, you find motivation to work. Danny bounced between friends' couches for a few weeks before finally getting a steady job and renting a room in a house with roommates. He actually called me once, asking if he could crash at my place just for a month. I said no and hung up. Kevin, the boyfriend's brother who started this whole mess, apparently moved out 2 weeks after I left, found another friend to mooch off. Natalie admitted later that he'd been kind of creepy, and she regretted the whole thing. Too little, too late. 4 months after I stopped paying, I got a text from Mom. Your father had a health scare. Stress-related. Doctor says his blood pressure is dangerously high. I hope you're happy. I blocked her number. Natalie sent a long email about how I'd destroyed the family and made everyone's life miserable. How I was supposed to be the responsible one, the person they could count on, and I'd abandoned them when they needed me most. I replied with one sentence. You gave away my room in a house I was paying for to a stranger without asking. Every consequence that followed was earned. She didn't respond. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.